let's talk about what I'm reading in November. Hello everyone, welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. My name is Kris, and today's video is my November TBR / buddy read announcement. Before we jump into that though, make sure you're checking that description box down below for links to my Discord as well as my social media, should you want to come along for the ride. Now I mentioned that Discord because over on A Fictional Escapist Discord channel, we will be doing a channel-wide buddy read of the Book of Words by J.V. Jones, starting with Baker's Boy. This will be running every month, so we'll have Baker's Boy in November, Book 2 in December, and then Book 1, finishing that one off in early 2023. So if you do want to come along for that, make sure you click on that Discord link, jump along, come along for the ride. You can always talk to me about it on my Instagram as well. If you don't want to join another Discord server, I totally get it. But this will be running probably in the last week of November. Of course, if you join, you can come and chat about it on the Discord at any point during the month, but I'll be reading this one in the last week of November. Getting into what else I'm reading in November. Now, this month I am doing a new release November because there are a lot of books that I've accumulated over 2022 that I have not read and they've been shelved. And ironically, a lot of those have been traditionally published, which I have now pushed to the side to make way for some more indie books that have released very recently or are releasing this month, and we'll get into that later. Starting off, I will be going with the two audiobooks that I will be consuming in the month of November. The first one being Sins of the Mother by Rob J. Hayes. This is book 4 in the War Eternal series starring Escapists Hellseen. This is one of the most underrated grimdark fantasy series in the entirety of the world, in my opinion. I read this in 2021 and far out, it is still one of my favorite series and one that I may even reread, consuming it in a different format. This one says Escapists Hellseen is missing. She left her queendom, her friends, her children, even her own name behind. No one has seen the Corpse Queen for a decade. Someone is murdering sorcerers, forcing them to reject their magic and opening scars in reality, and monsters from the other world are pouring through. When an old acquaintance turns up out of the blue, Eska has no choice but to investigate the murders and holes in reality. Can she stop the killer before the entire world is consumed? And will the conflict reveal her true nature? I have started this one, in all honesty. By the time you watch this video, I picked it up at the end of this month, so I'm probably about 10% of the way through at the moment. The next one I'll be doing on audio is the Final Strife. This is by Sarah El Arifi. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm sure I didn't. I apologize to the author. This one is an LGBTQIA+ friendly book. We have a couple of those here in this list, but I've heard Joshana love this. I've heard my good friend Roger really enjoy this, so I'm going to jump in. This one is the first book of a visionary fantasy trilogy with its roots in the mythology of Africa and Arabia. This one says 3 women band together against a cruel empire that divides people by blood. This is going to be brutal. I thought that it might be on the softer side of fantasy. I've been corrected in that thought process, and this one may give me a bit of a gut punch, and I'm looking forward to it. So that is on the list for audio this month. Next thing I'll be picking up is Bonds of Chaos. This is Threadlight Book 3 by Mr. Zach Argyle. I have enjoyed my time in Threadlight Book 1 and 2. I think it's a good fantasy, and the first book was a very good fantasy debut, but some of the characters are a little bit nice for me personally. I have heard that book 3 really brings it together, so I'm looking forward to getting to this one. I will be reading this one in a different format. I consumed the first 2 on audio, and I will be picking this one up on my Kindle. So we'll see what that one entails. It says to break the bonds, there will be sacrifices. So book 2 is definitely a step up for me in terms of plot and development and characters, so I'm looking forward to seeing what book 3 has to offer. The next one on my list is from an Aussie author who has offered me an e-arc of her book, and it was actually already on my radar. So when she asked me about it, I was like, heck yes, I'd love to get an advanced reader copy of that one. This is The Dream of Death City by Poppy Nwosru. Nwosru? I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. I'm so sorry, Poppy. If you ever watch this, please correct me down below or send me a message so I can pronounce it better when I do the wrap up. This one says, it is a chilling dark fantasy with a heavy dose of Sherlock Holmes in this new series of twisty mystery in fantasy worlds. That sounds awesome, and there's a reason that it was on my radars, because fantasy crossed with Sherlock Holmes. I'm digging those vibes. This one comes out on November 19th, and I will have a video review up for it on release day, so you can check that out then. The synopsis of this is: pale moths haunt an icy frontier. Beneath the shadow of a drowned death god, a frozen body is unearthed from the snow. Investigators arrive to a superstitious island to solve a brutal crime. Among them is a lowly slave desperate to prove her worth, and a soldier with dark dreams. Neither are prepared for what they find. Death City is a strange and violent frontier, and no one who survives comes back clean. First though, Thora and Diem must survive. It sounds really cool, so I'll be reading this one pretty quickly in November. It may even be the first book off the rank. The next one I have is another Australian author who just released his book. This is The Shadow of the Winter Moon by Cam Sinclair. This is book 1 of the Craven Chronicles. Now, I had to say the series name because how cool is that series name and how cool is this book name? This is another author who reached out to me and I said, I've already bought your book and I'm looking forward to reading it. So we're going to get that one under my belt in the month of November because it meets the new release criteria. This one says, drunk, scoundrel, thief, vagabond, fool. Realm Hangs has been called many things, and at one time or other he has resembled them all. Realm, however, knows a dark and terrible secret, one that delves right to the heart of Craven City. Sharrock is a grisly veteran from the harsh lands north of the Riven Expanse, a brutish man with a hard temper and harder reputation. When a business opportunity presents the seemingly simple task of locating Realm Hangs and providing a solution to his money woes, Sharrock is set on a course that will forever alter his life. Foul conspiracies that may threaten the very fabric of society will be uncovered. Scores will be settled, violence and mayhem unleash, and bestial lusts unfettered to rampage without restraint. The notion of right and wrong, hero and villain, action and consequences will forever be skewed and tainted. Welcome to the Craven Chronicles. That sounds awesome. Next up, we have a cover by, not gonna lie, that is Flames of Mira by Clay Harmon. Now, this is a book that I know very little about. All I saw was the fist, which is fiery and delightful, and I was like, whatever that's about, yes. It says Death by Ash or Death by Ice. I will be reading this one with my buddy Mark Timoney, hopefully early in November. The blurb for this one says, magic and redemption in a world of fire and ice. Among boiling volcanoes under Mira's frozen lands, people like Ig are forced to undergo life-threatening trials that bind chemical elements to the human body. It already sounds cool. One of Mira's most powerful elementals, Ig, serves as an enforcer for magnate Sorello Adrienne, but is cursed with flesh-binding magic that will kill him at the first sign of disobedience. When Sorello is overthrown, he quickly learns he can do far worse than what he's been asked of him so far. If he can't escape the flesh binding in time, he will have to kill friend and foe alike to stop his master reclaiming the throne or sacrifice himself trying. Sounds pretty good to me. The next one I have is a buddy read, which I'll be doing with Roger from Roger's Reads, and this is A Taste of Golden Iron by Alexandra Rowland. This is a little bit different for me. This is a fantasy romance, but it is a male-male fantasy romance, and I've heard it is a slow burn with not a great deal of plot. But two men together, I'm down. So I'll be reading this one with Roger. Moving on. I had a pretty decent reading month in October, and I'm hoping to continue that trend of a fair few books in the month of November. It's been good to take my mind off the other stuff that's been happening in my life and leading up into this move. It's going to be stressful, so reading is going to be a great escape from that. So I do have two more here that I would like to get to if I can find some time. The first is A Prelude to Ashes. This is by Tiago Abdallah. With the announcement of A Shade of Madness coming out in January of 2023, I need to get my butt in gear and read this novella. I've had it on my shelf since it came out, and I just have not read it yet. But I read A Touch of Light earlier this year and loved it. Tiago is an absolute weapon putting out 2 books in 1 year, and the third one, or the second book in the series, on the way. So I'm looking forward to getting to this one. Nice and short. Hopefully I can fit it in between some of those other big reads. And the last one that I have here, if I get some time, is The House with the Golden Door. This is by Elodie Harper and is the follow-up to The Wolf Den, which is somewhere here. And as a follow-up to The Wolf Den, I have this one on Kindle because the paperback doesn't release in Australia until 2023, like June or July 2023. So I picked up the e-copy. I really loved The Wolf Den, and it was such a breath of fresh air in a month when I was reading mainly horror. I have learnt over the last couple of months that I do need to switch up genres every 4 to 5 books just to make sure I don't get into a reading slump. If you're reading the same things all the time or similar concepts all the time, it is easy to fall into that slump of knowing what's going to happen next, and whatever book you pick up is going to be very similar to the book before that. There is so many genres and so many worlds out there, and even subgenres of whatever you're reading, that I have found for myself I need to break it up a little bit just to keep that momentum flowing. So if I do feel a bit of that burnout, I'll be picking up The House with the Golden Door as the continuation to The Wolf Den, as a historical fiction rather than a fantasy, which is what all of these are. Everything else is fantasy. So those are the books that I'll be reading in November of 2023. Have you picked any of these up? Are you going to pick any of these up? Do you want to come along for the Baker's Boy Buddy Read? Let me know in those comments down below. Jump on the Discord. I'll see you there. If you like the content, give it one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will, and I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao.